everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Francis and Nate. It is the end of March. We're finally maybe getting some spring weather. It has been kind of jerking our dicks around here, where we get those like really not. You remember those the Midwest spring where it's just like, oh, it's 65 degrees. You like that? Well, now it's 30 again. So go fuck yourself. So
yeah, I think I've talked about this. Like, there's so many things I'm like, maybe I've just plumbed the depths of every single memory I have for this show. But I do recall weird days when in middle school, just getting used to the Midwest, because, I moved to Indiana when I was 11, and things like you randomly have like a 68 degree day in February,
but it's windy as shit.
It's windy, but then it's like really cloudy and windy. It's not like a clear sunny day. It's absolutely like too warm, and it's causing atmospheric disturbances. But for example, the heating, whatever, ventilation, all the stuff that's set up in the school is set up, to be heating and not to be dealing with temperatures like that. And so the humidity just goes through the roof. I can recall this strange sensation of going into the bathroom probably in 7th grade and using the urinal, and like all of the metal parts of the urinal were sweating.
Yes.
Because it was because it was, insanely humid, like 100% humidity and like 68 degrees in February. But then, like you said, cold front comes through. I remember getting like lightning and thunderstorms in January, thunder snow in January. And then immediately goes, like you have a 40 degree Fahrenheit temperature change overnight.
Yep. And it's fantastic. Nothing like having to rush outside and throw tarp over all of your the shit that you planted early because you couldn't.
All your beloved garden implements. Yeah.
Luckily, pretty much everything I have in is garlic, so it's used to that.
Yeah, so we're not having, I guess I could say, it's not like we're having unusual weather. We're having very typical, I think, British weather for early spring. It was warm for a couple of days, and it was warm, but it was like cloudy. And now it's gotten just rainy as fuck, and it's probably like in the like high 40s, low 50s. So it sucks. Don't get me wrong, like it's bad, but at least it's not freezing. And I think like yesterday we had a really, really sunny day. It was cold. It was like sunny in the 40s, I think, maybe 50 is the high. So Tom and I were working in the studio yesterday, and he said he'd worked with Romanians before, and that they have an expression for a day like that when it's sunny and cold. They call it sun with teeth.
Ooh,
and I was like, damn, that's a really good expression of what it feels like. Because I rode my bike in yesterday. Today, I Cynthia and I had to go to an appointment, and so I then just took public transit in. And I just walking with an umbrella, doing the London thing of dodging the rain and shit. But I mean, I don't know. I have confidence that it's going to warm up, but it's, dude, I don't know. It's the tail end of winter and the winter weather, and it's like I think I did better than I was expecting to this year in terms of combating seasonal affective disorder. But I would say that this cold snap from February onward, kind of returning to shitty winter weather, has just really taken it out of me, because I sort of had let my guard down. There were a couple of really nice days, and I was like, oh, it's getting nice again. Like, we're going to have an early spring. It's going to be great. And it's like, no, we're not.
I didn't have any seasonal affective disorder because I was depressed about my kitchen, the whole kitchen situation. So I managed to escape. I managed to escape like the winter sads by just like normal everyday sads that were happening. So thumbs up, I guess, that the depression that I had was a little bit different than I thought it would be. Thankfully, though, now I can take brain pills and smoke weed, and it makes it not as bad.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose I should be talking about that, like in the sense of the degree to which I have recently had a bit of a change in my life, because I was diagnosed with having attention deficit disorder, and I imagine that people who listen to this podcast are not surprised. And I've talked about it a little bit. I think I talked about it a little bit on Lions as well. I just recall there being people commenting about like, I love Nate's digressions because it goes in a million different places and makes no sense until it finally comes back together, and it does make sense. And I was like, I appreciate that you're saying that, but to me, that's like incredibly embarrassing, because I realized how difficult it must be to have a normal conversation with me.
It's I'll tell you, during podcasts, I've learned when to let you go and when to break in. And that's, just we've been having, a conversation every week for like 5, 6
6
years
years
at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know, like, sometimes I'll let you go on a tangent because I know it's going to come back around to something good, and then there's times I'm just like, all right, if I don't break this up, he's going to talk for the next 10 minutes. So look, the biggest thing is that you're surrounded by people who, like, understand your brain and know how to work with it. Certainly, people when we do the Tuesday or the Thursday evening podcast, and it's Joe's. We're doing it for Joe's show, so that means Carrie and I both show up loaded. Joe knows how to deal with that by not dealing with it whatsoever and just being like, God damn it, you two assholes. It's what's important is that we're all having fun.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that. So I just completed the first month of being on what's called Vyvanse in America. It's called Elvanse in Europe. And I had another meeting with the psychiatrist, and they're going to slightly raise the dose, but I think that's going to be the dose I'm going to be on permanently. Because the way the system works, it's complicated here, and it's very difficult to get adult ADHD care, any ADHD care through the NHS. It involves a lot of being on wait lists. But you can do it through the private sort of pay-to-play system, and then once you've been diagnosed, they kind of hand your case over to your general practitioner's office. And assuming they don't want to just be dickheads and fight it, normally they're pretty cool with it. And so I went that route. And I realized that's a position of pretty incredible privilege, because even paying fully out of pocket, which is very pricey by British standards, is still about as much as I probably would have wound up paying with insurance in America.
What do you pay? Because my daughter takes Vyvanse, and yeah, the thing I always love to argue, the right wingers with their just like, oh, the kids are going into the gender clinic and getting their dicks chopped off. Like, I have to beg a doctor every 30 days for like a low dose of a medicine that makes my daughter's brain work well. So no, but and also it costs, like, with insurance for us it's $40 a month. Without insurance it would be like $350.
So when I get, assuming that it is picked up by the NHS and they don't like fight it and they're okay with it, my dose it'll be £9 a month. But right now it's like about 85, 90 pounds a month. And it's not a full month, it's 28 days. And then there's like a pretty, I mean, like the initial consultation fee and then the titration meeting fees and stuff like that. Like, I have to pay out of pocket. And I won't get that reimbursed, but it's just basically you pay to jump the queue. Or, I mean, not only jumping the queue, you're just sort of avoiding the queue altogether. And so that's truly kind of the nature of what things are like in the UK right now because of what the Tories have done to the NHS. Like, I would happily do this on the NHS if it was possible to be seen within a reasonable time frame. But at present, like, they're so overwhelmed and understaffed and things are constantly getting worse. And you could notionally do it for free. And I'm sure there are people who have navigated the system and been able to get there on the NHS where you don't pay anything. But if you need something right now, it's pretty fucking hard to get it if it's like a specialty care thing. And so private insurance is still, it's very cheap here, relatively speaking, compared to how it is in America, because there's the baseline guarantee of the NHS for now, at least. So people can get treated on the NHS for free. And so if you choose to use private insurance, like, oftentimes you're just being seen by NHS doctors anyway, even in NHS facilities, or just charging.
Yeah, but it sounds like this is kind of like how our cops moonlight as like security people basically at Lowe's or something.
And
it's they can make a little side cash by being cops elsewhere while they're not actually being cops. They can be cops, they're still dressed up like cops too, which is very strange. But there's like maybe one private hospital in this entire country. If you have an emergency, you are going to be seen in an NHS facility by NHS doctors. It's just that a lot of the stuff, when you're doing outpatient things, you can basically skip the queue and it's much more convenient. But I haven't, Cynthia got us insurance because her old job had insurance, and then we got pretty used to it. And now her new job doesn't have it, but it's like maybe, I think it's like maybe £110 a month for a plan that covers both of us. And so while that's a lot of money by British standards because wages are so low here, and obviously, if you're used to paying nothing for health insurance, that's shockingly expensive to your average Brit. But to an American, the idea that you could have a very comprehensive plan for you and your partner for $110 a month is like, wait, sign me the fuck up. Yeah, exactly. And so it's one of those things where it's getting worse. And I would bet you if things don't change, and given that the new incarnation of Labour are just, B-team Tories, I don't think it's going to change in a positive direction. I think it's going to continue to get worse. And I think they are eventually going to
more or less break the back of the NHS and force everyone to have insurance and force everyone to pay for appointments and stuff like that. So you'll probably wind up with a system, hopefully not as bad as America's, but like they hate the NHS. The conservatives in this country and right-wing liberals hate the NHS because they think they want to discipline poor people and working class people, and they think the promise of free healthcare lets people get soft and quit work when they want to.
That's why we don't have it.
It's disgusting.
Well,
that's why America,
and also
100%,
F30,
a fucking
F35s.
a trillion percent. That's why Americans don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Americans can't stand the idea that somebody gets something just like without having to suffer for it. But like the people who are demanding that have never suffered for anything in their entire lives.
Yeah, it's funny too because I mean Cynthia just got permanent residency in the UK after 5 years, and so now she just pays for the NHS with her taxes as opposed to the NHS surcharge that they charge immigrants on top of their taxes that pay for the NHS. And if I remember correctly, the NHS surcharge doesn't even actually go to the NHS. It's just another opportunity to bilk money out of foreigners because the immigration system in this country is insanely expensive. And so we have one last insanely expensive thing to spend money on for her, which is to get her naturalized as a British citizen. And then it's finally fucking done. And they have to use me as their American fucking piggy bank they just shake upside down. But bringing it back to what I was saying previously, because once again, I've done the thing I always do. I have been really taken aback by how much the medication helps. And I felt like a little bit of a shithead because in a way, when you go to a consultation service that really is meant to check you for ADHD and be pretty generous in assuming you have it based on what you report, I was like, fuck, am I just like gaming the system? And that's how it felt. I felt like an asshole. But I have a friend who, she doesn't listen to this podcast, but a friend from home who actually lives here. And as an adult, she was diagnosed with ADHD and autism. And getting treatment, getting medication, all that stuff has made a huge, huge difference in her life. And things seem to be going very, very well for her and her family. And I said that when we hung out one time. I just said like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm gaming the system. And she was just like, no, don't fucking say that. She's like, the system gamed you. Your entire life, you've had to basically work with one hand tied behind your back and be told that like, oh no, you're just not fucking trying hard enough. You're just lazy. You're just distractible. You need to focus more. And like, it turns out it's a thing in your brain. And I was like, all right, I'm going to trust you on this one, but I don't necessarily know if I believe it. But then literally within 2 days of being on Vyvanse, I was like, Roger. And this is having effects that it wouldn't have if I didn't, like if this was just an amphetamine and I was taking it, like I wouldn't be reacting the way that I would. I went through a thing that would normally stress me out to an incredible degree and make me incredibly irritable and probably unable to sleep. And like I came home and I was like, oof, it was a little crowded. Oh, it's 10:30 p.m. I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep. I was fine.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It is nice that it wears off kind of at the end of the day and lets you sleep. Yeah,
but also I think that genuinely like it helped me process like to not be so overstimulated by being in that kind of an environment that it made me irritable.
And that's like very much what we have to watch with our daughter is that, is overstimulation. Like yesterday, I took the last couple days off of work because it's my birthday, so I didn't want to be working during that time. And we went to the zoo as a family. We spent about 5 or 6 hours there. And like at a certain point, like with Vyvanse, I don't know if you've noticed this yet or not, but like because you're an adult and you have a better understanding, also because you're in the military, you have a better understanding of like how your body feels at any given time, and just like, oh shit, I need to drink water, I need to go to the bathroom, I need to do this, I need to do that, because that's just how our brains have been done, either by being adults in the normal world or being in the military. My daughter is 7, she doesn't have that, so there's a lot of kind of having to chase that kind of stuff down. We generally give her Saturdays off because that's when she eats. Like she will eat nonstop on Saturday when we tell her that she doesn't have to take her medication. And all the other times we're just kind of having to put like just like what can I give you that you will eat, because you haven't eaten in like 6 hours and you have to eat something. She's like, no, I'm great. I want to read books. I'm gonna go run around outside. I want to do this. I want to do that. And like that's like her on the good drugs that are helping her out, because she is doing stuff. She will sit down and read books for hours at a time, which if she's not on her medication, she does not do that. So it's very late, and it sucks that we have gone through a lot of different like when you're talking about like getting diagnosed as ADHD or autistic as an adult, fucking impossible in America. Like it's hard enough to get diagnosed like in when you're a kid, especially when you're a girl. Like, because girls, it's just girls just mask, like boys will fucking fly off the handle and be insane all the time. They'll be like, yeah, give him some medicine, he'll chill out, and then it happens. But like, girls don't really get that kind of thing. And like, we took her to get evaluated for, to be on, if she's on the spectrum, and they're like, the guy's just like, yeah, so there's like these 2 columns of autism. Like, all right, here we go. The fucking 5 pillars of autism. Sure, whatever. But he's like, if you're in, you got to have something from column A and column B. And it's like, well, she's got everything from column B, but nothing from column A, so she's not autistic. Like, because she's friendly and she can look you in the eye, she's not autistic. But like all this other shit is, all right, fine, whatever. So, and the thing is that creates barriers into, as you're saying, medications that you can get, treatments that you can get, things that you can get. But luckily, I am incredibly privileged that we have very good health insurance through my very good job that I don't hate, that allows us to do all kinds of occupational, speech therapy, things like that help her out. And, it's all, the thing is that it's all stuff that like eventually she would get over, or she wouldn't, and she would just live with a stutter for the rest of her life, or she would live with, food problems for the rest of her life. And like, people just live like that. And they don't get the help, they don't get the medication that they need. So it's just really like, it's just incredibly frustrating to like, because all my life I've been perfectly healthy. Like, other than some PTSD, my brain functions fairly normally, regardless of what the rest of you think. I've never had a TBI. I smoke weed, but I don't really, I don't drink anymore. I don't do hard drugs. I don't do things that would fuck my brain up. So I'm not really like, in this world of having to deal with, brain medications or therapies and things like that, because I'm, for the most part, fairly neurotypical. And then like, when you have to start dipping your toe in for somebody else is when you just immediately realize like, oh, all of this is incredibly fucked up. Like, there's always people always say that, everybody should work in a restaurant for like 6 months of their life to, have you give you a better idea of what it's like to work in the service industry. But like, also everybody should have to be like, everybody should have to go through the process of having to get like medication for their children. Any kind of medication, any kind of prescription medication for a child, because it is goddamn impossible sometimes. Or sometimes like they're just throwing pills at you and they're just like, well, try this. Like, can we not just, can we talk about this? Can we have a conversation? Sometimes you get good doctors, sometimes you don't. Our daughter has had great doctors and she's had really shitty doctors, and it's just really fucking frustrating. And then, compound on top of it the fact that, at any given time, somebody's going to walk into a mall and shoot it up with a gun. So everybody's brain in America is slowly rotting anyway. We probably should just start pumping Wellbutrin into the water like we do fluoride. Maybe that'll help out a little bit.
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely understand exactly what you're talking about with the suppressed appetite and having to remind yourself to eat. That's been a thing where I'm not hungry when I'm on the meds, unless I'm like doing a lot of physical activity. And even then, sometimes I could convince myself if I was being stupid to just have like a small snack and wouldn't feel hungry anymore. But I know that's a terrible idea, because if I do that, it's going to, I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to feel kind of ragged and, stressed out and, unwell, I guess, maybe like.
I have that same problem when I'm working, like when we were working on the kitchen. If I get sucked into a project, I don't want to stop.
Same, yeah.
And I will have to look at the clock, and I will have to stop and think, like, how am I treating people? Because if I'm being short with like my wife and my daughter, I know that I need to eat, and I know like I have to stop. And I'll tell them, like, I have to stop working. I have to sit down. I have to eat a sandwich, because if not, it's just going to get worse. And again, that comes back to, though, that I am good at listening to my body. I can, I have that ability to stop and say, okay, I'm feeling this way, I should do it. But of course, it's only really about 80% of the time. Then there's the other 20% where I don't eat until 5 o'clock. And then I eat like half of the pantry in one go, and then I feel sick because I haven't eaten all day, and then I overeat, and then I just want to lay down and die. So don't be stupid like me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've noticed this. Something that when I started looking, to count macros, which is something I've benefited from, I think, I discovered that one of the best ways to stay within your macros, if you're not going to be able to control everything you're eating over the course of a day, especially if you're going out, is to at least square yourself away with a breakfast that really hits a lot of protein and not a lot of fat. And one of the best ones for that is Greek yogurt. And like you can get zero fat Greek yogurt, like strained Greek yogurt, and it's really high in protein. So that helps a lot.
What I do, because Lily doesn't want to take a pill, we get the gel caps and I put it into a spoon of peanut butter for her.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard you could do that. I heard you can literally like just sprinkle it. But I guess for me, I've discovered that when I get up in the morning, once I've taken the meds, I could ostensibly just have like a protein bar and be like, oh, not hungry. But like, I will feel bad. I will not have energy. I will feel grumpy if I do that. Whereas if I just make it a point, it's not exactly the most exciting thing in the world, especially on a cold day. It's not like I'm like, sweet, a bowl of cold yogurt. But doing Greek yogurt, I've been doing things like putting like berries and chia seeds and stuff in it with a little bit of honey. Like that, if I have that, like I actually feel really like good to go. Like I can get stuff done. I can be motivated. Like if a task's in front of me, I can immediately complete it without overthinking it, without kind of like, having to like force myself to start. If I need to pull away from something in order to make a time hack, like that's so easy on the meds, like so much easier than it would be before.
You have problems with transition. Yeah,
I do, and I have a problem with
Lily has that too. It's where it's just like, but I'm in the middle of this, like, but we have to go. But I'm reading a book. Fucking bring the book. I don't care, but you have to stop. You need to put shoes on. And the thing we've learned is that like we have to tell her like, hey, in 5 minutes we're gonna have to do this, and that eases it. But it's good to hear that also you have that issue too. I mean, not good to hear that you have it, but that it's just not a it's something that's a normal response for ADHD brain.
Yeah, I mean, what I remember this becoming really kind of clear to me last summer, because the computer that I'm using right now to record, in the machine that runs the recording software in our actual studio enclosure, something was just wrong with it, and it was causing Audition, the program we used to record, to mess up. Like incredibly large amounts of glitching were happening, but I'd been noticing it before, that there were huge glitches. Like even before the problems kind of erupted, there would just be these periodically an episode, and it would just drop half a second, and it would completely desync stuff. And like people, if they were in the middle of talking on the recording, it would just really awkwardly splice. And I couldn't figure it out. And I had done a rebuild of the studio machine, the recording machine, to put in a better processor, to put in an actual graphics card, so we didn't have to run like using a splicer off the single motherboard display port. And it got so much worse. It completely fucked. I mean, I had to do a recording to cover down for TF because like Riley and Milo were out. I had to do a regular TF recording, and I just do it upstairs with a handheld mic and like a little miniature USB plug-in device, because the whole thing that we'd spent all this time and money assembling just was not working. And I really, really was just troubleshooting the fuck out of it. I could not figure it out for a while. And I realized that I had a problem with being able to walk away from a task that was incomplete, because like on numerous instances, I was in the studio till like 11 p.m. and there was no need to be. Like nothing was going to change. I just didn't want to stop working until I could figure it out, and I couldn't figure it out, so I didn't want to stop. And finally, when it was like, Jesus Christ, Cynthia's already in bed, I'm being ridiculous, I would get on my bike and, ride home and fucking moonlight. And I don't really have that as badly now. I do find that at night, when the medication's starting to wear off, I definitely am more prone to like kind of going back into the old mode as opposed to like all day, all the time. But what's funny is the story with that is I think I may have figured out the problem eventually. I don't know, but what I do know is I could not get it to work. And you work in IT, so you know this to some extent. I could not get it to work with anything, old drivers, even running I'd saved the M2 drive, the SSD that had the image of the previous installation on it. I could not get it to work. And finally, after like 2 days, I was just like, all right, here's what's going to happen. I am going to unplug every component in this computer that I can unplug, every PCIe component, every USB port, except the ones that I need to run this stuff. And we're going to see what happens. And I'm just going to take them all out and plug them in one at a fucking time, and then try it out, do a test recording, just methodically go through it. And part of that was I unplugged literally everything, to include the USB headers, like the connection that runs from the motherboard to the case, so that you can, there's the one that runs from the motherboard to the case, and then there's, then there's the onboard ones, the ones that are run out of the motherboard itself, like the back of the board, the part that when you put it in a computer case, like you have the plugs available. And I don't know what happened, but when I booted it without the motherboard headers, the USB headers plugging into that connected the ports on the case to the board, something changed. It like cleared the cache or something. I have no idea, and the problem went away.
Yeah, that's IT trick 101 is unplug everything and do that one at a time. Next time, shoot me a message first, and I'll tell you to do that before you spend 2 days banging your head against
Christ,
the wall.
dude. Yeah, I mean, I'm dealing with it right now because of the way the studio enclosure works. We have to run a USB extension cable to be able to plug in the webcam, and I think something's wrong with the cable, but I really don't know. And so right now, what I'm trying to do is, because what I discovered with these monitors is that they have USB ports on the back of them, but you can't use them unless
don't use those for any of your. If you've got something that needs like my the recording equipment that I have has to be plugged directly into the laptop. If you try to run it through anything else, you're going to get degradation.
Well, the problem that we've got though, dude, is that we already are, in the sense that like the recording stuff is fine, because the recording setup is there's a mixer and there's an add-on card that we've installed that runs basically over all of the digital audio can run over a single Ethernet connection. And then you have like a DI box, a big DI box that fits into a rack that connects over that Ethernet connection. And so you run one Cat6 cable through a network connector in this port that basically like a wall panel that connects through the wall of the soundproofed room. And so that's fine. And then it plugs directly into the computer with a single cable. That's fine. The problem that we have is that to use a webcam, we need a USB connection. And what we're doing right now is running a USB cable out of the back of the board of the motherboard itself into that wall panel, and then running an extension cable and then plugging the webcam into that extension cable. And I think the extension cable is starting to go or something, because it just periodically cuts out and therefore changes the available number of audio devices, which fucks up a lot of recording things. So what I'm trying to see if I can do, this is super technical, but this is like what, Cynthia laughed at me. She's like, I thought I married a writer and I never had to deal with computer science people, and now all you do is work on computers. But what I'm trying to do, and we'll see if this works or not, is I'm speaking to a vendor that sells specialty equipment. There is a way, and these monitors are capable of handling it, to run USB-C in what's called DisplayPort alternate mode. And so there is a USB-C connector on that wall panel. And so the plan is to run a DP to USB-C cable to that port, and then run a single cable from that port to the monitor. And then that would allow us to use, to get the display information, so you have video display on the monitor, but then also that will turn on the USB ports on the back of the monitor, as opposed to right now where I have to run like basically 2 extension cables and something's fucking up. And because of the distance that has to be traveled, you can't get just like a regular DP alt mode USB-C cable, like 65 watt or 100 watt USB-C cable. You need basically a hybrid cable that's got the copper wire to transmit power and fiber optic to cover the data, or vice versa. I can't fucking remember. All I know is that I think 3 meters, maybe 2 meters is the longest you seem to be able to get a USB-C cable for displays. After that, like, it has to be a hybrid cable. And so finding someone who sells one that, you can actually confirm in the information on the listing that like it does do video, it does do power, it does do upstream, downstream USB. Like, I think I found one, but like they don't sell to regular people. You have to have a trade account with them. So like I'm in the process of being like, hi, I will happily open a trade account with you guys and buy cables from you in the future. But like, you are literally the only person in the United Kingdom that I can find who sells this whole fucking cable. And so we'll see.
It reminds me of being in Iraq and having to find the, I can't find what I need from the PX, and Amazon doesn't really exist in a way that is effective at the moment. Time to go down to the bazaar and start just like, hey man, next time you're here, can you get me this? And it's just computer cables. It's nothing like you'd think we're trying to get drugs or pornography. It's like, no man, I need a fucking USB 2, and I can't find one anywhere in country. Yeah. I mean, I'll get you one, and then you open it up, and it's just like a box of rocks or something. Like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, that happened to Joe actually, like in Armenia. What he needed for his microphone was a USB-B mini to, I think, either USB-A or USB-C connection for his laptop. If he has a new MacBook, I can't remember, that it would have been USB-C. But getting a USB-C to USB-A adapter is easy. You can get that anywhere. But the USB-B mini is not a common cable anymore. It was in like the mid 2000s because it was like what every digital camera used, but it's not anymore. But some things still use it, like some USB plug-in microphones,
old stuff that like still that still works fine. Like, you know, you can get like a mixer or something like that from, you know, 10 years ago that does effectively what a mixer does today. It just has older plugins and everything. So if you have one and you're just like, well, I don't want to spend, you know, $150 on a new mixer. I want to spend $7 on a new cable. Sometimes it's hard to track those down. You can get them on Amazon, but that's about it that I've seen.
Even the new stuff, except for the things that are going to be new models that are released, because the EU has basically mandated that everything's got to go to USB-C. And so the new iPhones will be USB-C, the new iPads already are. But like, we bought a Zoom F8N mixer, a field mixer for doing Trash Future field recordings, because carrying a big front of house mixer can be a nightmare. And while it obviously is like the preferable choice because it gives you so much more control over what's being sent to whatever the fucking sound system is in whatever the venue is. And that's a whole story for another day in terms of the UK and just like the amount of just nightmare, unpredictable shit I walk into in these venues in terms of like what they've got for their sound system. But we bought the Zoom because it's about the closest you can get, but it's still like super light. You can carry it wherever. It's not like a big thing that requires a travel case or like a flight case. But it has a USB-B mini connector. That's how you plug it into a computer. And it's like, I know that, so I'm able to buy them and have like spares. And when we go on tour, it's always like a big time accountable item that I make sure I have that cable on me, or in the case, the little zip-up case that we have for it. But that's not a thing that you can just like as commonly go down to the store. If you go to like an electronics store, you'll be able to find one. But like, you know, your garden variety, like guy who sells vapes and drinks and chips and fucking, you know, USB chargers and cables and stuff, like they'll have a USB-C cable. They'll have a USB-A cable probably, or what's it called? A USB micro cable. But the Mini B, not so much. And then the other one, the one that often goes in the back of printers, I think that's just a USB-B cable, like not mini or whatever. I can't quite remember the designation, but that one also is still in use pretty commonly, and you just don't see them around as much. Yeah, I think it's USB-B is the what's it called? The one that, like, for example, our big mixer uses that. All of our printers use that.
Yeah. The USB,
just about every scanner I've used, except for the one Cynthia just got, that's USB-C, uses that. So.
Yeah,
crazy we got on this topic, but like this is the kind of thing, like podcasting might sound glamorous, but like what I've been doing these past couple days as I've been working has been like doing networking shit, honestly. Like, I've got a system where it doesn't really make sense to have a computer on and never sleep because it has an 850 watt power supply, because it's a computer that's running a big graphics card and a big processor, video card, all the things on it. You know, it's a machine, like an editing machine we built in 2019. And so my only problem is that, once again, super IT chat, that's the machine that has adopted all of the networking components for our network cabinet. So the firewall, the switch, the mini switch, all the Wi-Fi points, etc. So what I've discovered is you can't change any of your global settings on the network unless that computer's on. Because it's got to be active in order for the system, the Ubiquiti system, from what I can tell, to recognize, like to sort of treat that whole setup as active. Now, there is a thing you can do with Ubiquiti where you have like a cloud system, but you have to pay like €40 a month for it, because of course everything's fucking rental now. And I'm like, it's not a thing I need on a regular basis. I can't countenance that expense, but I need to be able to remote in and be able to change the network settings in case there's a problem where I'm not in the studio, or God knows I'm not in the country and they're having a problem. You know what I mean?
God, you're gonna have to do IT for the Trash Future guy. Like, they're all younger than you, and you have to teach them how to use computers. I was fucking promised, like, oh, our generation is going to grow up with computers, and every other generation is going to grow up with computers, and everybody's going to know how computers work. And I swear to God, the people who are the most useless in my job are the people who are like 25 and 26. And I firmly believe it's because they never had to do shit like what you're doing. Like, yeah. And when back in my day, back when the internet was new and fresh and we all still reacted to Goatsy, you had to figure stuff out. You had to, if you wanted to be on the internet, it took some time. It took
Some
effort.
work.
It took
Yeah.
getting people off of the phone.
Well, no, I
and now-
remember like as an aside, like when I built a machine when I was 14 with scrap parts, like I was able to get a 56K modem, but something was wrong with the way it was set up I was using Windows 98, I think.
Yeah.
And the driver needed to be updated. And I called the tech support for the manufacturer, as unbroken 14-year-old voice kid being like, hey, I'm having problems with my modem. And the guy talked me through it. And literally I had to open up the driver file in Notepad, like open that up. And he told me what to type, just letter by letter. And then, saved that, restarted the computer, and ran the connection, and it worked. And it's just like, I do stuff with this all the time, building machines, repairing things, both for like home things, but then also for TF. And like, I've never had to do that. I've never had to edit a driver ever again. But in 1999, that was, I guess, a thing that was normal. And
I've had to do it within the last few years, but also I work in IT, and my job specifically is having to do all this really granular bullshit that, like, when something really, really breaks, I'm one of the ones who has to figure out what it is and what's going on and how to fix it. And sometimes it involves that.
Well, since you do that, then Francis, I'm going to point you to my situation, and I have solved it, but I'm interested in if you can figure out, and maybe the IT tech heads listening onto this episode will be like, fucking, like yelling at their phones or their speakers. So here's my conundrum. I have a computer that's always on. It's a recording machine, not a high-powered machine. I have the machine upstairs that has to go to sleep because it's just going to use a ton of power if it's on all the time. So I need to be able to have that machine upstairs turn on so I can access the network infrastructure in the configuration settings. Like I can remote in if there's a remote connection to the downstairs machine if the internet's active, but I can't change, for example, port forwarding settings. I can't look at the log. I can't see what's going on. I can't check like the whole sort of infrastructure map that you have in the Ubiquiti cloud portal unless that machine upstairs is on. Every computer, the recording machine, the editing machine, everything is on a wired LAN connection, and we've got a 24-port switch. It's a gigabit switch, and then it's routed through a firewall. So I can remote into one. I can't remote into the other. What do you think I did?
So the one that you can't remote into it because it's asleep, right?
Yep.
Okay, so but you have these directly wired into the LAN. They're not wireless, which means that it's always got an on connection at the time, and that means that the wireless drivers aren't turned off. So you should be able to set up does it have a static IP or a?
It's got a static IP.
Okay, then you can set something up that will have that will basically send a signal to wake it up. Look, I'll let you in on.
You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. It's just the term. I have a thing to send a magic packet over LAN. So I remote into the one machine that's always on and send a magic packet over LAN. It wakes up the other machine, and then I can access everything.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll give you guys a little hint. Pull behind the curtains. I just Googled this shit and I found exactly. Specifically, it says this guy's rig is a power hog. How do I get it to turn on? And like literally everything we just talked about is in there.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rebuild that machine with a new because I'm getting a new 13th gen Intel processor for it because it's just like I have a newer ThinkPad that's 12th gen and it's faster than any computer I own because like just the advances in the new Intel processors mean that like for what we do with editing sound and processing, VST effects on audio tracks, like it's all. I know you can do what's called, I don't know what CUDA stands for, CUDA, but like you can basically integrate your graphics card to assist, but I've not found CUDA integration to really help that much with Adobe software. And it's probably because of what Adobe does and doesn't utilize. But what I have found is the newer processor is just way fucking faster. Like something that would take 15 minutes on that machine upstairs takes like 7 minutes on my laptop. And so I'm getting a better processor for us. And so when I rebuild it, what I'm going to do is, obviously all that shit's going to be installed and Wake on LAN will still be on. I've turned it on and it works. But what I think I'm going to do is go in and actually do registry edits to change the what's it called, the TCP UDP port for remote connections. And that way one computer will be on one port and one will be on the other because they're all, I think that it's all, 3389 is the default port. And so I'm just going to change it in Windows, so that way, like, not only can I do Wake on LAN, but then I can actually remote directly into that computer. Because at present, when I remote, even if I plug in a different port. Like it only gives me the option of selecting that one machine and not the other. And maybe I'm wrong and I'm fucking it up, but I've read online that there's a way without using like a standalone with like a third-party program, like a paid program. There's a way to just registry edit, change the ports, and then if you do a remote connection, you do the IP address and then colon that specific port, you can remote into that specific computer. So that's what I'm hopefully going to do, because I'm going to be in fucking Geneva, and like I'm going to have to be able to, whether it's like, oh, they recorded on the solid state drive and then fucking didn't move the file to Dropbox, you know, I can then remote into that machine and move it myself. Or if there's like a problem with the upstairs machine, the editing machine, I can work on that. And before you say, why can't you just map the Dropbox drive and save in Dropbox directly? I'm going to say this. There's an error with Adobe. They have not fixed it. They've known about it for like a fucking decade because Adobe's the worst company on earth. There is a problem with Adobe with Dropbox where if it's got any process running where Dropbox is updating stuff, Adobe will not, for some reason, work to create a new file or save a file. And so you get this really scary thing when you click save and it just gives you an error and says it can't be saved. And you're like, oh my God, did I just lose an hour and a half of recording? So what our workaround for that is, I would say get a OneDrive, but like it's really hard to dealing with OneDrive on Mac, and I have a Mac at home, is a nightmare. And so I'm just like, we just have a solution that works. So it's like,
do you just save it? Do you save it locally and then just send it up?
Yeah, just move it over. Save it locally. It's safer anywhere to record on the SSD.
You can create a folder on your computer that automatically syncs with Dropbox that you can save to, so that you can save your Adobe files to that folder, and then it would automatically sync.
No, I have done that. It's just the problem is that Dropbox, if anything is running on Dropbox, I think that's the conditions. It might be other conditions too. If anything is updating on Dropbox, a file is being uploaded, a file is being saved, any transfer is happening, it won't let you create a new file. It won't even let you like start recording. Like it completely, like the average user would look at it and think that something was completely glitching out. So what we just do is we're in a situation now where they know that when they finish recording, they should just move it from the hard disk to the network, to the Dropbox. But if they forget, which then I just remote in and move it myself because it's on the C drive. I can just remote in from anywhere and pop it on there, and then edit wherever. So yeah, like it's funny. I'm kind of doing some things that are in your wheelhouse now. And yes, I have a degree in journalism and a degree in creative writing. And this is what I mostly, and I'm the only guy on our team who knows any of this.
I have a degree in network engineering. I have not engineered a network other than like my own Wi-Fi in more than a decade, and 98% of what I learned in school was completely useless. So
it's so funny though, because this is like, I obviously like using Macs, like they're just aesthetically pleasing and it's to some degree more stable, but like Jesus Christ, you cannot do like lots and lots of networking stuff on Macs. It's crazy. Like, dude, I have a network storage drive that I just got at home to like consolidate all of my cold storage, and it's loud as fuck because it's got a magnetic drive. So like, I want to just turn it off and then just do wake on LAN when I need it, when I just need to put something on it, you know, because I don't use it that often. And like, it's basically impossible to send a magic packet from a fucking Mac. Like, the programs that exist for it don't work. And like, the only thing that I found that people said works is like a thing you have to compile in Mac terminal. And I don't even know what the fuck you'd call that code. Because obviously it's like DOS or whatever the fuck, but like, I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know how to use it. Like, genuinely, Milo thinks I'm doing fucking witchcraft when I open up a command prompt and do stuff with DOS. And I was like, which is, for those of you who aren't familiar,
don't do it. Look, today is my 40th birthday, and we have just been doing everything that makes me feel old as shit. Now, go ahead. I fucking love command prompt. Did you open it as a administrator too?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no. But command, that's on Windows. On Windows, I solved the problem. I mean, I have a laptop, and also I have a little what do they call it? Like and you see a NUC, you know, the little Intel mini PC that's just like used as like a storage thing for watching movies on our TV, and so that's connected to the LAN, and so I just literally from my Mac remote into that and send the magic packet, and that works. And it's like, it's so easy, and then on Mac it's impossible. But no, when I was a kid, our first computer was a Tandy, and it didn't have a hard disk. It just booted off floppy disks, off 5 1/4 floppy disks. And so if you wanted to, like, we had like the first King's Quest and the Sword in the Stone and or was it the Black Cauldron games, like old like 16 color Sierra games. or like text games. And like my brother taught himself how to program in GW Basic when he was like 5.
I would love to see a Twitch stream of the Trash Future Boys playing like, a text-based adventure game.
Like Zork. Riley's kind of a fan of that old stuff, but I mean, we had, like a lot of those.
Let's make Tom do it.
Make Tom play Zork or any of those other really famous text games, like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text game.
That was my favorite one.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, the point I was trying to come to is that those old computers, they booted up in Microsoft Disk Operating System or MS-DOS. And so you had to put a DOS disk, a boot disk, into the drive and turn the computer on, and then it would load the command prompt. And then, you could then put it had 2 drives. You could put another disk in the drive and go to that drive and then, type in like, I don't know, fucking blackcauldron.exe or something like that and play the game. But it wasn't like Windows. Like Windows was like revelatory when I used it for the first time that you could just double click on something.
I know a graphic user interface. It was wild. Windows 3.1.
That was the first Windows that I had, and so for me, like having to do something in the command prompt, it's just like Milo's the only one who's seen me do it, and he always thinks I'm literally doing something like hack the Gibson fucking witchcraft shit. And it's just like, no, man. Until I was like 10, this was the only way I knew how to use a computer. And it just makes you realize, like, 'cause it's your birthday. Happy birthday to Francis. He's turned 40 today.
Yeah. I found out you can play the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text game on the BBC website.
Oh, look at that. Go hang out with fucking Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Yep. And I've already died, so.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, it is very easy to die in old text games. Also, like the weird sexual text games that they made.
Leisure Suit Larry. Yeah.
Well, no, we had Leisure Suit Larry. We weren't supposed to, but we got a copy of it from our friend.
Nobody was supposed to have it, but we all did.
Exactly. Oh god, Leisure Suit Larry is basically a Sierra like little like adventure game where you're like a horny man trying to fuck, and it's just very stupid.
But you're like the most cheesy looking horny dude, like. But for some reason, he is constantly getting laid. He's a little short.
He is.
And shout out to him because he's a short king, too. Like every
he's a short king with kind of a pot belly, and he's wearing a leisure suit, and he just manages to get laid.
He's got his hair is moving back from his head, but god damn it, man, he has confidence, and that's what leisure. Yeah. That's what Leisure Suit Larry.
And when you go and you
has.
buy a condom in Leisure Suit Larry 1, you pick exactly what you want, and then of course the concierge at the store announces like, "Hey, this guy just bought a like X, variable, Y variable, Z variable condom," and then everyone in the store goes, "What a pervert!" Like, it's such a fucking... Why is buying a condom, why does that make you a pervert? Like, it's just
he's going to have safe sex. Gross.
Oh, what a pervert. He's having sex. Sex is perverted. It's like, yes, Leisure Suit Larry is a sex adventure game for adults based on the notion of what sex must be like as assumed by, like, 9-year-olds.
Right. It's a game that was written by people who have never had sex.
Well, they basically had to make a more or less family-friendly sex game. It couldn't be pornographic, so it had to be funny, but it had to treat sex as like dirty and gross.
Right.
And it's very funny.
Let's see. The latest one was called Wet Dreams Don't Dry.
See, does Sierra still make them though? Because like if the IP is now
I don't think Sierra still exists.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, dude, what was your favorite Sierra game?
I played a lot of King's Quest.
Yeah.
Oregon Trail was Sierra eventually. Like the original Oregon Trail is the one that everybody really remembers.
Yeah, we played in school. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a lot of different ones. Let's see. There's that cop game. What was the cop game?
Fuck. I know exactly what you're saying. Hang on.
Sierra does still exist.
Police Quest, wasn't it?
Yeah, Police Quest.
Police Quest, where like if you don't do a 4-point check on your car, every single time you get in it, you die.
You die. If you do not PMCS your vehicle, you will fucking die. Every
single time you'll die. It's so funny. Oh man, Police Quest is such a fucking funny, stupid game. Because they tried to go a little hardcore, and they had like the Police Quest. What is it? Police Quest 4, the one that were like Daryl Gates, the disgraced Los Angeles police chief, was like an advisor to it. It was like this scary serial killer game. It was sort of like Silence of the Lambs style thing. Doing like it was dumb as hell. But the first Police Quest is like very much like looks like it's like 8 or 16 color, and it's just super stupid. And yes, you will 100% die if you don't PMCS your vehicle. There's lots of other ways I'd forgotten about some of the really, really dumb ways that you can die for like not doing, literally following the rules, 100% of the time, which as we know, all cops do. What I was going to say too was I think my favorite Sierra game was King's Quest 6 because we got, like I said, we had that old Tandy. And then finally, when we moved back to America, when I was 9, I was 8, that Christmas, my parents got a newer computer that handled Windows 3.1. And so we got King's Quest 6. Like it was a computer with a CD-ROM and you could play games off a CD. It was insane. And so, I played the fuck out of King's Quest 6. Like I completed the game with like a, AOL bulletin board printed out or like saved TXT file of a walkthrough in FAQ.
Yeah, I forgot. They also did 3D Pinball. They did the You Don't Know Jack games.
They did, what is it called? There were a couple of good Sierra games that I liked. There was, this is really killing me. There was a couple of, was it Quest for Glory? Did you ever play that? Quest for Glory was like kind of like a comedy. The best way I could describe it was absolutely like a Warrior's Quest adventure game where you're like a knight with a sword and shit, but like a lot of dumb campy stuff happens to you. Like it's kind of like a parody of that genre, but like
they made a fucking game based on the book Rendezvous with Rama called Rama.
I don't even know what that is.
So Rendezvous with Rama is one of Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote 2001 Space Odyssey. It's one of his. Also, like, how if you're a Tolkien person, you read The Hobbit. If you're a real Tolkien nerd, you read Lord of the Rings. Rama is Arthur C. Clarke's kind of Lord of the Rings. It's basically humanity is in space, but they haven't come across any aliens, and then just like an alien ship shows up, and humanity's like, hey, this like trading ship is the closest thing. You guys go investigate it. We literally can't send anybody else, and it's going to be out of our galaxy in a certain amount of time. So it's just basically a book about this thing shows up. These guys get into it, and they walk around, and they say cool, and then they fuck off. And that's the entire fucking book.
Francis,
yeah,
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but I went on the list of Sierra games on Wikipedia, and I found out the one I was thinking of, which is Soft Porn Adventure, which is a text sex game that Sierra made in 1981 for the Atari. There's also a game called Party Games for the Amiga, I think, because my friend's older brother in Germany had it, and it's really stupid. It's just like sex games for adults were so bad in the early video game era. Like there was this game that's famous in like early game system lore called Custer's Revenge that is both insanely racist and also like weirdly sexual. But what is it? The game I'm thinking of, the Sierra games in like the early to mid 90s that we played a bunch of were Gabriel Knight. I don't know if you remember those. Mm-hmm. The Gabriel Knight role-playing game where like I want to say one of the voice actors is Mark Hamill. So Luke Skywalker. What is it? There was, you said You Don't Know Jack. Police Quest 4 Open Season is the one I was thinking of, the one that was like the Daryl Gates one.
Mm-hmm. They made a Black Hawk Down game.
Did they? Yeah.
Well, hold on. This might be, that's, okay, developed in Division. So yeah, I'm on the same Wikipedia as you are. This is what this podcast now is, just
it is. And then it was Roberta Williams' Phantasmagoria, which sucked. It was like a 6 CD game because like they really got into like CD cutscenes, like live action cutscenes.
Yes, that was my favorite time of 90s games was the live action cutscenes.
Where you have to buy a game that has like this huge case of CDs because it's not. I'll tell you, Phantasmagoria is not good. Gabriel Knight 2 also not good. Gabriel Knight 1's pretty fun. Like I genuinely think they hit their peak when they were like, they had some cutscenes, but they had it was mostly just like the pixel art stuff. I've never found games that have the like live action integration to be good.
The Jedi Knight games, there was when I say that they were not bad, they weren't like a complete like shifting without a clutch kind of thing when it went to the live action, like the Kyle Katarn. I think the very first Jedi Knight game was the one they did that, and then they abandoned it for all the other ones. I'm not sure which one exactly, but the Jedi Knight one with LucasArts maybe had a little bit of extra money behind it, so it wasn't as bad. But no, like Phantasmagoria was just god awful. Like for the most part, it was bad, and I feel like a lot of that is because they were trying to cram, it was a 240p video that had to be blown up on your CRT screen and small enough so that it could fit onto a disc. So you go ooh and ah, but like nowadays, if they did that, I think it would be better. But also, like I'm playing the new one of the last Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order game. And they, the main character, there is a person that is modeled off of that they can, put into these things. But I do think that nowadays your average gamer is not going to want to watch a movie stuff in between their games. I guess I don't know. I think I miss that time, but also I'm old, so it might just be that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I'll leave you with this because I know we're going to wrap up this episode. But my parents really liked the Caesar series that Sierra put out.
Yes.
The Caesar 2 was the first one they got, which is, it's like a combination of, it predates Age of Empires, but it's sort of like a combination of SimCity and Age of Empires, but in the Roman world. And so you have to design a city, but typically you get a mission for like a specific thing, like you've got to produce this commodity or whatever, or you have to fight off barbarians. So you have like, action combat things. It's like real time. It's not turn-based, but then you also have to like build your city and build roads and build, schools and water treatment and all these things. And, fire stations. Sim Rome, yeah. So the way my mom, my brother, and I played this game was just to do the tutorials and just figure it out. If you fuck up, you restart a level. To give you some insight into how my dad works, my dad was fascinated by this too. Instead of playing the game, he sat down with the instruction manual, the game manual, and read the whole thing, and then got out a piece of paper and a ruler and a pen and started drawing out, based on what the game said, the specifications were, what would make the most sense of like how to configure this, like for long-term growth in mind. And my brother said he got up to pee in the middle of the night. He saw my dad. He'd been very successful. He'd managed to build a much bigger, much more successful city than any of us. But something was going on where he'd made some mistake. And my brother said he overheard my dad talking to himself, just being like, my city's going to shit. At like 3 in the fucking morning. Now, my dad is emphatically not a gamer. Never was a gamer. I've never seen... He hated video games. He didn't understand them. He thought they were really stupid. My parents were definitely part of the sort of like anti-Nintendo, anti-Simpsons cohort of like late 80s, early 90s parents. But he got into fucking Caesar. He clearly has. He's got... I must share this with him, the tendency to tunnel vision fixate.
All of our parents, all of our parents have that deep inside of them where they could have accidentally became a gamer if somebody put the correct game in their hand.
My mom had to go to physical therapy because she fucked her neck up playing Dr. Mario so much.
There you go.
So yes, basically my parents both of them are closet gamers, and all their fucking bromides about goddamn Nintendo rotting your brain aside, because any early 90s children, as in you were in grade school in the early 90s, you remember that whole fucking tendency. Despite what they might have said, doesn't matter. They're gamers too. So with that, Francis, all I can say is happy birthday.
Thanks, buddy. I'm the first of the Bethaniverse to hit 40. So
yeah,
I'll tell you all. It's fine. I'm fine. It could be worse. I could hurt more.
Yeah, and I'll be 40 next September. So this September I'll be 39, and then I turn 40 in September 2024. And there'll be some other big changes happening in my life too. So, I'm sure 40 will look very, very, very different in so many ways than 38 does now. So best of luck, buddy. I'm happy you made it this far. You're doing well. Your kitchen's fixed, things are going well.
That's what's important, is that I can cook a meal again, and because I haven't been able to. But guys, thank you so much for listening. Keep them on. We're probably going to put this out as a bonus. I already have something for the regular. So thanks. No,
I put the Jasper Craven episode out as a bonus, so we probably want to put this out as a free one this week.
Oh, okay. We
really needed a bonus before the end of the month, so I just put it out.
All right, that works too. So enjoy this ramblings for free. And if you want to hear an interview I did with Jasper Craven about Ron DeSantis and how insane torture motherfucker that he is, pudding eating bitch that he is.
I'll put a preview of it out on the free feed, so I'll do like a 10-minute cut of that, and then you guys can listen to that, and I'll link to the Patreon in the show notes of that. So if you're interested in hearing Francis's interview with Jasper, who's a friend of the show, great writer, and also reading his article in the Baffler on the same topic, that'll be available. So, and then obviously, like, every bit of our Patreon content is available at the $5 tier, all the way back to 2017. And then if you're at a higher tier, you get free patches and stickers and stuff from Francis once a quarter.
Yep.
So just bear that in mind. On this episode, I'll have a link to our Patreon in general, and I'll put out a promo as well that's got Jasper Craven's interview, so you can hear what that sounds like.
So everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Have a good one.